Okay, so it's time for us to dive back into our coverage over identity crisis. And now we pick up the fourth issue of this actual main storyline. Now, we're only covering one more chapter because we have to dive back into some more tie-ins when it comes to identity crisis. Now, the fourth chapter does pick up where the last chapter actually left off at. You see, at the end of the last chapter, we had saw that somebody was able to break into the home of Jean Loring. Now, Jean Loring is actually the ex-wife to Captain Adam. The problem is someone was able to break into her home and begin the process of trying to hang her. Now, luckily for her, she was on the phone with Captain Adam. And so he was able to use his powers as a way to travel through the phone line to arrive in the apartment just in time to use his powers once again to break the rope. Now, at first, it did look like, okay, he was too late and she is officially dead. We do see that he was able to save her life at the very last second to bring her back to life. But the problem is now is that is now two loved ones of superheroes who have been attacked. And Jean was almost the second victim, meaning that she was almost killed off. Now, for Jean Loring, it's kind of like that's a huge problem because she has the same kind of security that Sue Dibney had, the wife of the elongated man. And so somebody is able to bypass all kinds of different types of security to be able to break into the home of a loved one of a superhero. But now the problem is, who's next? Because now it seems like they're going after anybody who may be related to a superhero. Now, after Jean Loring had been saved by Captain Adam, you didn't have other heroes arrive at her apartment to kind of begin their detective work, to try to figure out what exactly went down here, like who it could possibly be going out of their way to target different loved ones of different superheroes. Now, for me personally, this kind of shows how serious things had become because you have Superman there, right? Now, Clark was there in the earlier chapters, but this time, we're actually focusing on Clark a whole lot more than we did in the earlier chapters because you have Clark now being very upset that that's now two loved ones of two different heroes who have been attacked in 4 days, which means that sooner or later, other loved ones of other heroes might be attacked. For example, Lois Lane. And so for Clark Kent, he was able to examine the rope and realize what kind of knot was used on the rope. He said, hey, this kind of knot is only used by a certain group of people. Now, thanks to Oracle, she was able to figure out which villain might have used that kind of knot, a character known as Slipknot. And so for Clark, he tells Green Arrow, I need you to get somebody to go down there and talk to Slipknot because that man might be the key to figure out who may be behind all of this mess. But the way Clark said it, you can kind of tell that he is so serious that even Batman might be scared of him as well. Now, for Green Arrow, he knew that there's only one person you can call when it comes to gathering information from somebody, and that would be Wonder Woman. Now, when she arrives, Slipknot at first kind of like, listen, there's nothing you can do to me at all. But then she brings out the lasso of truth. And we already know when the lasso of truth comes out, you are about to spill all your guts to someone very soon. And so for Wonder Woman, she said, you're going to talk to me and tell me everything I need to know when it comes to the idea of who is actually attacking our friends and their loved ones. We do learn that after hours had passed by with Wonder Woman kind of interrogating Slipknot, they were unable to get any kind of information out of him. Now, for Oracle, she does tell our heroes that the only connection that Dr. Light and Slipknot have is that they were both part of the Suicide Squad. Now, for Superman, that is a lead right there. But for Green Arrow, it's not a strong lead at all. Now, like I said earlier, you can kind of tell that things got more serious when you have Superman being involved in your event a whole lot more than usual. Because in the earlier chapters, he was kind of there, but not really. But in this chapter, he's there. He's kind of like, no, I want to know what in the world is going on here. Because for him, he's afraid of the idea that somebody might go after Lois Lane, that somebody might go after his parents. And so you have Green Arrow say, no, Clark, like, unfortunately, the Suicide Squad is not a strong lead. Now, for Clark, he's kind of like, do not take that tone with me at all. But you have Oliver say, Clark, you have to realize that we are now panicking. And as soon as the other side realize that we're out here panicking, sooner or later, they're going to try to take that as a way to get an advantage over us. And so right now, when it comes to our detective work, we need to be on our A game. Now, for Green Arrow, you would think like, okay, he's right. But in reality, you have the other side, the villains right now, being scared about the idea of being out there because they have been hearing the rumors about what the heroes have been doing, that the heroes have been going after different bad guys across the world. And some heroes are doing some serious damage to those bad guys across the world. And so you have a group of bad guys kind of like, hey, listen, I'm hoping the heroes sooner or later find the person who had basically started all this mess. And when they do, everything can finally go back to normal. And so technically right now, you have both sides just panicking. They're afraid of the other side. Now, when it comes to identity crisis, it was also playing around with the idea of Captain Boomerang having a son, and that would be Owen Mercer. Now, down the road, Owen Mercer would actually replace his father as Captain Boomerang. But when it came to Owen, at first, we were kind of left to believe that he was actually the son to Captain Boomerang, the first one, and also Golden Glider. But down the road in DC Comics, they had a retcon saying that actually, when it comes to Owen Mercer, he is related to the Flash family. Now, I'm not really going to dive too deeper than that for this video. Just know that Owen Mercer is actually the son for the original Captain Boomerang. Now, we do learn that when it comes to Owen, he had no idea that his father was actually Captain Boomerang because he was adopted. He never met his biological parents. But thanks to different newspapers talking about him, he was able to learn the actual truth. But you also have Captain Boomerang finally working up the courage to go talk to his son. And so now you have these two characters being able to build that father and son relationship. Now, I want to jump over to Batman. Here's the reason why. Because you have Alfred inform Batman that the other heroes are beginning to think the Suicide Squad were the ones who were actually targeting Sue Dibney and Jean Loring. But you have Batman say no. And here's the reason why. Because to him, it has to be somebody who could actually benefit off the death of those two characters. Now, technically, only one died and one had barely survived. But for Batman, he has to play the mind game of somebody out there who could possibly benefit off the death of those two people. And so for Batman, it really cannot be the Suicide Squad. It has to be somebody else. And so it kind of digs deeper into the whole idea of who is actually the person going around targeting the different loved ones of the different superheroes in the superhero community. But now we have to jump over to Oliver Queen going over to the grave of Hal Jordan. Now, this takes place before you had Jeff Johns actually take over the Green Lantern book. And the reason why I'm saying that because before you had Jeff Johns take over the Green Lantern book, Hal Jordan was actually the Spectre, God's vengeance. And so for Oliver Queen, it's kind of like, if I want to figure out who had killed off Sue Dibney, who had tried to kill off Jean Loring, the best person to go to would be Hal Jordan. And so you have Oliver going over to him like, hey, so I don't know if you know who target our friends. Like, do you know? But the problem is for Hal, he can't tell Oliver because he is not allowed to, because he answers to a higher power, of course, talking about God. And so for Oliver, it's kind of like, What you're telling me is that we're just stuck. Until we are able to do the right detective work to figure out who's going around targeting our friends, we're just basically screwed. And for how? It's kind of like, yeah, dude, you're screwed. I'm sorry. I am just God's vengeance. And unfortunately, I answer to him. But now we have to jump over to Lois Lane. Now, for me personally, this is one heck of a cliffhanger. And here's the reason why. Because as we saw so far, they're now targeting loved ones of different superheroes. And so we already knew that sooner or later, that could possibly mean like Batman, Superman, or some other hero. And so for Clark Kent, it seems like somebody out there actually knows that he is Superman, which means that they know that Lois Lane is, of course, close to Superman. And so while she's at work, she gets a letter. And when it comes to that letter, it tells her, like, hey, we know that Clark Kent is Superman. But on top of that, we want to tell you that you're next. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.